Hey, Patreons, welcome back to the Spotlight. This is our feature where we talk to creators and folks whose work that we've loved forever in the pop culture space. I'm joined, believe it or not, for the second time, though it's been about a decade, by artist Ron Frenz, who is a man of legend from Marvel Comics from my childhood. Ron, it's great to see you again. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you very much for asking and for having me on.
You
And
bet.
I, yeah, I'm thrilled to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I said, I came up reading your stuff in the 1980s is when I started reading Amazing Spider-Man. It was my first superhero comic book after reading G.I. Joe and Star Wars before it, both of which you worked on,
Mm.
which is amazing. So yeah, I'm kind of really very steeped in everything you've done since about the time I was 10 years old. So, oh, and got my other title, the Indiana Jones comic that Marvel did, which is,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's completely out of print, but I happen to have every issue, every single floppy issue of it, which I'm
You
happy.
were uniquely positioned to catch a lot of my early work. Yeah.
I know. That's why I love chatting with you. But let's kick it off the right way. How did you? So you I know you live in Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you get started in the business?
Wow. Well, I loved comics since I was younger than 10. And it's something that if you asked 6 or 7 year old Ron Frenz what he wanted to do when he grew up, it was to draw comic books and work for Marvel Comics and do Spider-Man was my young ambition.
And you
And
did it.
yeah, so I was able to make choices early on and stuff. I went to a Votech for commercial art last 2 years of high school. I went to the Art Institute of Pittsburgh for 2 years. And upon graduating the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, I put together some sample pages. And Jim Shooter was also a Pittsburgh native, and he was doing a shop appearance, a signing at a local comic shop. And I, along with other hopefuls, went down with my portfolio, and he was willing to sit and review portfolios, and went through my stuff and was very positive, gave a lot of great tips, and asked me to Xerox those pages and send them off to Marvel. And I did. And they sat in a drawer for about a year. In the meantime, I got a job at a local animation studio. We did local and regional commercial spots, but also worked on Creepshow uh, because George Romero was using local talent and everything in every aspect. But about a year after I had sent in the samples, I was still living at home with my parents, and my mom called me at the animation studio and said, "You just got a phone call from somebody named Al Milgram, and he would like you to call him back."
I talked to Al just a couple of weeks ago. It was a very long conversation.
Yeah, I called back Al Milgram, and he handed the phone to Louise Jones, and I was hired to do my first Kesar fill in. And I kept the job at the animation studio through working on Kesar and the Indiana Joneses that you mentioned, and Star Wars and Marvel Team Up. Um, and then around the time that they hired me to do 6 months of Spider-Man, I decided to go to comics full time and gave up my position at the studio and went into comics full time. And
Fantastic.
yeah, and it's worked out, thankfully.
Yeah, no doubt
Uh,
about it.
yeah,
No,
aside from a few little glitches here and there that are not worth talking about in the overall scheme of things,
yeah,
it's been a hell of a ride. It's been a
that's
lot of fun.
awesome. Oh my gosh. Now, my first Amazing Spider-Man was issue 287. I have it framed in my den. Now, I don't think that was one of yours, but you started going back. You were back quite a bit before that, if I'm not mistaken. What was your first issue of Amazing you can think of?
The first issue of Amazing that my name was in was 248, The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man.
Oh, wow.
I came on with 251, and then
Okay.
252 blew the doors off.
Right behind you.
252, I was hired initially just to do 6 months while John Romita Jr. went off and got X-Men up and running. He was planning on coming back and doing Amazing and X-Men, which is amazing. It's incredible to think about, but
Right.
that was the plan. And at some point during the course of those 6 months, he came into the office and he was talking to Danny Fingeroth, the editor. And in the course of it, they had a conversation where, he said, "Did you seem to be happy with these guys?" And he said, "Yeah, I think DeFalco and Friends are gelling, and I like what they're doing, but we'll stick to the deal." And at that point, I'm told by Danny that JR just said, "Let him have it. I got plenty of work on X-Men." And
Awesome.
first time I met JR at a convention, I thanked him for my run on Spider-Man.
Oh my, you hadn't even met him at that point. That's wild.
Yeah. We did a show together at one point. We were out to dinner, and I said, "From what I understand from Danny Fingeroth, I have you to thank for the remainder of my run." And and that was that's how I was told it went down, and I'm forever grateful. But
Well,
then editorial changed and things shifted, and you
right.
know, an edit the difference in editors can be the whole ball game.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Now, close to that, and this was right before probably ASM 300. I'm trying to remember correctly, around 290, 291, right before Peter and Mary Jane got engaged. Didn't she go home to Pittsburgh? Was that a little on the nose? Did you have anything to do with that?
No, I didn't have anything to do with that. In fact, we had plans to meet Mary Jane's sister, and we had some amorphous plans, and they were very, very different, and they did not involve Pittsburgh. That was, I believe, Dave Michelini was the one who decided
Okay.
that Mary Jane's family was living in Pittsburgh. That had nothing to do with
That's
me.
weird. Yeah, especially with both you and Shooter being from there. So that's
Yeah,
I wondered if it was one of be like if I said, well, this guy's from Detroit because that's where I'm from. You
it
know,
might
I'm
have had something to do with Shooter being from Pittsburgh, but I
right.
doubt it had anything to do with me being from Pittsburgh.
I hear you. Looking outside of Amazing Spider-Man, and we'll circle back to that because I could talk about all the live long day. You mentioned obviously you started in Kazar, you did the Star Wars, Indiana Jones, GI Joe, so on and so forth. What's another really standout character you loved working on, or like a story that you can really remember that were like, man, I love the work we did on this?
Oh, probably too many to name. What I will mention is that I came in on Kesar. Um, and Louise Jones, that was out of Louise's office. She hired me for Kesar, and and the Indiana Jones was also out of her office, and Star Wars was out of her office. And at one point early in my career, I was very concerned that I would never get a chance to do superheroes because I wanted to do superheroes.
Yeah.
And one, they had decided they liked my storytelling, so I was doing breakdowns on everything.
Hmm.
I wasn't doing full pencils. And two, I was doing adventure characters and not superheroes, and I was very concerned about that. So when Spider-Man guest starred in Kesar, which again I had nothing to do with, they just decided to do that because Kesar was having a New York adventure. Um, it was I kind of saw that as, ooh, this might be my chance
Yeah.
to do spandex guys, and so Spider-Man appeared. Apparently, it worked to the degree that Tom DeFalco, who was the editor on Team Up at the time, saw the Spider-Man stuff and decided I didn't screw it up so bad that he was willing to hire me on Team Up. I was the regular guy on Team Up briefly, although it was broken up by other fill-ins and things like that, so it didn't really seem like it. But I was on Team Up long enough that the transition between Tom DeFalco as editor and Danny Fingeroth as editor was happening, and I was, kind of in the office as the Team Up guy. And there came that split issue for Assistant Editors Month with Roger Stern's wonderful Kid Who Collects Spider-Man,
Right.
and Tom Tom DeFalco said, I was planning on giving you this Kid Who Collects Spider-Man, but I don't know what Danny's planning on doing. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be Danny's final call." And Danny made the same call. And Ramita Jr. ended up finishing up his Thunderball story, and I did the 10-page or 11-page Kid Who Collects Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that was one of the jobs. Getting back to your question, that was one of the jobs where everything worked.
Yeah.
The production people and the little newspaper clippings, the lettering by Joe Rosen, the coloring by Christy Shield, the inks by Terry Austin. I mean, everybody was on their game, and I am very, very proud to be a part of that story.
Yeah, that's incredible. I haven't
And there have
dusted that
been,
one off
you
in a
know,
long
and there
time.
have been plenty of others along the way, but I always hide behind the. Somebody just asked me this on my Facebook page, and I just hid behind the "They're all my children," which is
Well, sure, it's true though, in a way.
which is something you say when you really just don't have a good answer.
But you just
Because I
gave me
mean,
a great
I
answer,
love
so I'm privileged.
I loved our short run on A Next for MC2.
Oh God, great
I
title.
loved a lot of what we did on Spider Girl. I loved my entire run on Thunderstrike. That was a labor of love that Tom and I got to create from the ground up. The 7 years that we spent on Thor, I knew I woke up every morning knowing that these were going to be the good old days. I was going to look back on this as the good old days because Ralph Macchio is a terrific editor, very supportive, very creative, and we just had one wonderful ride on that. As long as the book was selling and the editor was happy with what we were doing, it wasn't like it is today where you're concerned every 3 issues you're going to get canceled or every 6 issues and everybody's only worried about the 6 issue run or the 1 year run and starting with a new number one, and that silliness just does not appeal to me at all.
Yeah,
But as long as we were entertaining the readership, we were welcome back, and we kept trying to entertain ourselves, and kept throwing in some new things. What was always funny to me was, when we had Eric Masterson take over, we had letters from people saying that, you don't understand the Thor character. You were just there for the last 4 years with us, enjoying the work we were doing. Maybe you could give us a few issues to figure out what we're doing here. And
yeah,
but to say that we don't understand the Thor character when you've enjoyed the last 3 years is a little ridiculous,
right.
And I think what we did right there was that Eric was never not concerned with finding the real Thor. That was the whole point of his run. It was not that we were trying to replace Thor or say that Eric was better than Thor, but that we were just trying something new with the character, which was really, in a way, returning him to what the original concept was before they decided that Don Blake had been created by Odin to teach Thor humility. Because when you read those early issues, Don Blake was a doctor who found the magic cane in the cave and slammed it against a boulder and was Thor. And that's we want to kind of, they never really explored that because all of a sudden he was just acting like Thor. And when he went to Asgard, he was everybody knew him and everything was fine. We were actually kind of intrigued by, you know, they ended up transitioning that into something different. But what would that be like if you just were standing in for this guy, that you were given the power of Thor and you got to interact with Asgardians who resented you? And it turned out to be a lot of fun stories, I thought. And I think a lot of people agreed, to the
Yeah,
point that the sales department came to us and said, we understand you're wrapping up this whole epic. And we said, yeah. And they said, well, we're looking at transitioning Eric into his own title. And Tom said, as what? What would that look like? And they said, well, that's what you get to figure out.
no.
And we went, oh, swell. so there was, there were a couple of different concepts that were thrown around. One was, turning one title into like Tales of Asgard or something like that, and having Thor stay king and have Eric be Thor on Earth. And, there was a couple of different things that were kicked around. But ultimately, that's what led to Thunderstrike.
Gotcha.
And,
Excellent.
and again, it was very flattering and wonderful because Al Milgram and the rest of the team on Thor with us they were given the choice and they opted to go to Thunderstrike with us, which was wonderful. They just brought in a whole new team on Thor, that kind of thing. And we weren't expecting that either.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
quite often you launch a new title, like with New Warriors. We brought New Warriors in on Thor. And then as New Warriors got their own title, you hire a new team. You get Fabian Nicieza and Mark Bagley, and they make that an epic, wonderful hit. That
Yeah.
kind and it would have made perfect sense for that to be the way Thunderstrike went, but Tom and I wanted to do Eric. We wanted to follow Eric because he was our guy. So.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Okay, I promised I was going to get back Spider-Man because I never get too far off of it. So, again, I start reading. It's 1986 at this point. Actually, Spidey was in the red and blues in that issue, but I have always held the black costume as my costume, and not like the organic version.
How could the black costume be your costume if you started that late?
Because I can't tell you because it became probably because it became so prevalent after that first issue that I read. So like the gang war arc that you did, that was you, right? I'm not
we left just as the gang war was starting. Actually.
Oh, okay.
We left. We were fired just
Oh.
as the gang war epic was starting. Oh, you
Gotcha.
never heard that?
No, tell me.
Oh yeah, we were fired by Danny's replacement as editor. Yeah, we were unceremoniously relieved of our duties.
Ouch! I've been there
So
before.
yeah, we did not choose to leave Spider-Man. That was my dream gig.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we were yeah. Well, that's it. We're okay now.
Yeah, I can tell. But
it was relatively traumatic at the time.
I have been through a surprise firing myself for 2 in my life, so I get it. But yeah, I mean, when I was talking to DeFalco about it a little earlier this year, black costume super controversial, certainly when it came along. And like I said, I loved it. You were. I have a huge poster of 252, which is right behind you in that book, on the wall in my home office upstairs. So I love that story, and I love black costume. Obviously, spinning out of Secret Wars, but Secret Wars was published over a year, but all the regular titles kept running. So you were doing the black costume all the time that was going on, if I'm remembering correctly, or it happened.
Well, did DeFalco tell you that whole story too?
He did, but I would love I would love your take.
Well, it's just that 252 was done by fill-in guys because Tom scripted over Roger Stern's plot. I was not I was just brought on for those 6 issues, so I was a fill-in guy. And Brett Breeding was not the regular inker; he was a fill-in guy. So we were all fill-in guys. It was not something that was planned as this new launch with a new team. A lot of people think that that's what happened, and it's not even close. And I was sent the Mike Zeck sketches of the costume, and I thought it was a new villain. And
Makes sense.
I was then told, no, this is his new suit. And that little 6 or 7-year-old I was just telling you about, who couldn't wait to someday draw Spider-Man, I got to do 251 with Klaus Janson of all people, and just was I was in heaven. And then 252 comes along, and he's not in. He's in a different suit. So
by Red and Blues, yeah.
I got here just 1 issue too late. But anyway, so the new suit hits. As DeFalco says, there were not a lot of people that were very confident about it because that was back in the days of snail mail. And it had been mentioned in the fan press that he was getting a new suit. I don't know if anybody had seen it yet, but it had been mentioned that he was getting a new suit. And we were getting a lot of hate mail about it.
Right.
And Shooter came into DeFalco's office and he said, "What issue are you bringing in the new suit?" And he said, 252. He said, "Get rid of it in 253. We're dying here." And Tom made the argument, "Jim, we can't get rid of it in 253. And he goes, "Why not?" And he said, "Because it doesn't show up until like issue 8 of Secret Wars. So we can't get rid of it before it's introduced in Secret Wars. So we have to at least hold on to." And Shooter gave into the logic and said, "No, I understand what you're saying. You're right. So get rid of it as soon as it debuts in Secret Wars." So if you look at the way it came out, the monthly issues, the issue of Spider-Man that comes out after it's introduced in Secret Wars is the issue he finds out it's a symbiote and gets rid of it.
258, I think.
258, 259, something like that.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah. So that's how that all happened. Now, by the time that happened, everybody had seen it, and the snail mail was all positive.
No.
Everybody loved the suit, which is why he, we had Black Cat give him a cloth version of it.
Right.
He was switching between suits for a while and all this kind of stuff because it was a hit and it was an unanticipated hit.
Right.
So everybody looks at all of that through the lens of what goes on now, where Spider-Man gets a new suit every year or so.
He's got another one coming up. I saw an article today. He's getting a technical something
There you
suit
go.
for
There
issue
you
975. I
Yeah.
read a headline at lunchtime.
I mean, it's just a thing now. Plus the fact any new team that's hired gets a new number one.
Right.
Even if it's Batman or Spider-Man or whoever it is, that started with what, Todd McFarlane, and I guess
Yep.
it's just become a pretty regular thing.
Yep.
So that was not what the situation was at all. I mean, we weren't sure we weren't going to get hung in the town square for changing Spider-Man's costume until everybody saw it, and then everybody calmed down and everybody loved it, and there you go.
Right. And
That
it's
that
still
was that whole run. Yeah, that whole run was. We tried to not pay too much attention to it. I mean, what Tom was the one that came up with the idea that it was a symbiote because he went to Shooter and he said, "How can this suit do all the things that you've established it can do?" And Shooter said, "I don't know. That's your problem." So Tom is the one who came up with the idea of the symbiote, the living thing bonding to Peter. And the conversations that we had about it were, this was definitely taking Spider-Man in a very science fiction-y direction. And what we wanted to make sure of was that Pete reacted like Pete.
right.
That I got this nifty new suit that does all these great things and can camouflage itself as street clothes and all kinds of really cool science fiction-y stuff, and then finds out that it's a living creature trying to bond with him.
Right. Yeah, right.
And all this kind of stuff. So the most important thing to us was to have Pete reacting as Pete would always have reacted to that, to keep
Right.
it ground in Spider-Man's reality,
Yeah.
in Spider-Man's street level New York reality.
Right.
And
Yeah, exactly.
that's what we tried our best to do.
Right. Which is funny now because now there's the Spider-Verse and all this different stuff and time goes by, but I will never love anything more than I love that 80s time period when I started reading, you know what I mean? And of course, I started reading and then I have a local comic shop I still go to that I bought almost everything going backwards, and of course Marvel Tales reprinted those older issues that I couldn't find, and so I have my claim to fame, which matters to nobody but me, is that I've read every issue of ASM. Thanks to print issues and Marvel Unlimited, which I can read on the go. I've kept up with all of them. So, but there's never been. Yeah,
there are some podcasts that are based solely on the fact that these people have read every issue of Amazing Spider-Man. As a little shout out to them, I won't mention their podcast because that's not fair to you. But
appreciate that.
Do you believe what the annuals count or don't count?
I think everything set in the same continuity counts. I mean, I'm a Star Trek guy.
Yeah, of course the annuals count.
I'm a Star Trek guy, and Star Trek rules are if it's on screen, it's canon. If it's not, it's not. So if it's in a comic and it's called The Amazing Spider-Man and it's in the same continuity, it counts. That's my stance.
There you
That's my stance.
You're going to weigh in on the annuals count. So do I.
You put me down. Yeah, and you can send those other guys. Hey, I'll talk Spider-Man with anybody all day long. You send them right at me. This is
one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah, this has been totally awesome, and I'm glad we found our way back to each other. I love talking, and I know we've talked almost nothing but Spider-Man. I didn't even get to anything else you did, so I apologize. But tell me what you're working on right now. Where can people find you? What are you working on?
Well, I thank you for that because there's two things I want to mention. One is come next February of 2026, they're doing. I guess they're counting cumulative issues of Venom, and they're doing Venom 252.
Nice.
Okay. And they have called Tom DeFalco and myself to do a 10-page little story to weigh in on some. We had to come up with something to fill 10 pages that revisits the era we were just talking about. of Spider-Man in the black suit, and we also touch base with what Eddie Brock was going through at that time, and the symbiote, and all of that. And we got Brett Breeding to ink it. So the team
Wow.
from Spider-Man 252 will be coming together for 10 pages of Venom 252
That's awesome.
to do a little anniversary thing involving that. Otherwise, what I'm doing is I'm working for a smaller publisher called Sit Comics,
Right.
uh, and doing a title called Blue Baron, and occasionally helping out with some of the other titles as far as covers and things like that. But it's a really fun. Uh, the publisher Darren Henry is a child of Marvel '70s, so it's very all ages, very family friendly, and a lot of fun. It's really in my wheelhouse, and I enjoy the. I've helped design most of the characters, and I'm having a great time with it. So that we're doing that when time allows. Mostly, I'm living off of commissions, private
Right.
commissions through a website called
I've got
CatskillComics.com.
it right here.
Gentleman named Scott Kress who takes orders for me. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm very blessed and very thankful, but we have like a 2 year wait list.
Whoa.
I'm trying to look at it as job security,
Right.
but unfortunately, I mean, every time we go to the next people on the list, oftentimes people drop out and things like that.
Right.
But I'm working as fast as I can to try to turn these things around a little faster, and hopefully the wait is worth it when they see the pieces. And I'm on Facebook just under my name, Ron Frenz, and I try to post something every day just to kind of keep a conversation going
Yeah.
with people that are interested. So I'm staying active. I'm staying busy,
I love it.
and feeling fine with it. And anytime you want to talk, usually these things go a little longer. So I want to stick with whatever your vibe is. But
I mean, my conversation with Al Milgram went almost an hour, and I had to cut him off, and I had to promise him a part two because he didn't even get. And I'm not trying to drag Al because what a nice guy, but
oh,
we
he's terrific.
we
Yeah, the
did. We
best.
spent 30 minutes trying to get him going. His son was in there messing with the computer, and we still never got his camera to work because he didn't have one to start with. And then and then he talked for 30 minutes about the history of comics, and I was like, well, I want to talk about you, and so I'm going to bring him back. Let's talk to Bob Layton, and we didn't get to half of that. Like, he dropped some stuff that I hadn't heard of. I'm like, I'm bringing you back for another one. So I would.
Well, if you have time now, ask me one more question. What would you like to talk about if you have one more question?
I will. My one last question. Tell me about your non-Marvel experience. Tell me about Superman. Tell me about the other publishers that you mentioned.
Okay. Well, with Superman, Thunderstrike was canceled uh, as part of the Perlman purge, where they decided to cancel half the line, thinking that the half that was left would sell twice as well, which
Right,
is
math.
not really going to work. But anyway, so a lot of books that were selling just fine were canceled. Thunderstrike and War Machine, and the spin-off characters were the first to go.
Right.
That kind of thing. So that happened, which meant that my contract really wasn't worth much. Mark Grunwald, God bless him,
Big
spent
fan.
time looking for work to meet my contract and was unable to find anything. But at the same time, Brett Breeding mentioned to Mike Carlin that Thunderstrike was ending, and Mike Carlin called me. I had done the two Superman annuals for him in the late '80s, and he was looking for some new blood for the Superman books. And he will never poach talent. He would never have called me if I was working on a regular title. But since I wasn't anymore, he called, and I was able to tell Mark Grunwald, Mark, I thank you so much for all of your efforts, but I have somewhere to land, so I'm going to go over and do Superman. And that was a really tough gig. Mike Carlin had moved on to an executive editorship, and I worked under two different editors, Casey Carlson and Joey Cavalieri, and they were in a very tough position trying to follow Mike Carlin on that title and ride herd on that incredible troupe of fantastic writers and artists. But they were also, they had lived through the wars together, so it was kind of hard for a new editor to come in and do that kind of thing. And it's a tough gig, I mean, because it's like working on a weekly comic. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't really have time to sit and germinate with the plot or anything. You have to start producing immediately. So the guys who have done it the longest, the Dan Jurgenses and the Jerry Ordways and the Roger Sterns and the John Bogdanovs and Louise Joneses, they have nothing but my respect, because that was a much tougher gig than one would think,
Yeah.
turning the work around. But I was honored. I mean, I'm kind of a Marvel guy myself, but I started out on Superman and Batman just like everybody
Sure. Yeah.
else. And I grew up with George Reeves and the Filmation cartoon and all of that. And
Yeah.
so I was very honored to be working on Superman for the time I was. So that was wonderful. I also did some work for Archie Comics, and I actually dealt with a young editor there that almost seemed to think I was punking him or something, because I was talking about how thrilled I was to be working on Archie. I mean, with Tom, and Tom started at Archie Comics, so
Right.
he loves writing for those characters. And I got to do like 3 Jughead stories and a short Archie story and stuff. And I loved working with those characters, because I mean, when I was growing up, the big 3 were Marvel, DC, and Archie.
Right.
And I actually, Archie Comics and an artist named Harry Lucy were real lessons to me, along with John Romita, on how to draw women. Because
Yeah.
as you're evolving as an artist, as a kid, you're just drawing superheroes punching each other, and then you realize, well, if I want to do this for a living, I have to draw ladies, and I have to draw horses, and I have to draw trousers, and all this kind of stuff. So that I remember buying a whole stack of 60s Archies by an artist named Harry Lucy, who was just fantastic at all of it. And I really loved it. Al Milgram inked those jobs, and so it was homecoming for that, and it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. And I'm just like a big happy kid with that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
because in fact, I was talking to Al at one point, and he said that he was actually called upon to simplify some of my Archie stuff, because I I was like putting too much work into the backgrounds, and putting too much detail on some of the characters. This isn't a Marvel book, Ron, and it's like, well, I'm sorry, I wanted to at least approach the guys that I admired,
Yeah.
just the same way you want to do it Marvel or DC, that kind of thing. So yeah, I've been really fortunate. I mean,
Yeah.
when I was first getting a lot of exposure at Marvel, uh, remember Kamiko was doing a Johnny Quest comic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was a huge Johnny Quest fan when I was growing up. As a kid, I was nuts about Johnny Quest. And I heard that if you did anything for the Johnny Quest comic at Kamiko, whether it was a cover or a pinup or anything, that they would send you, they had a packet of Doug Wildey's character models for the cast of Johnny Quest. And you can see this stuff on the internet now all the time, but this was back in the 80s. And so I was able to call them up, because I had enough exposure at Marvel, and say, I'd like to do a pinup or a cover or something. And I ended up doing a pinup and a cover. And they sent me the packet with all the Doug Wildey model sheets, and I have it to this day, and I love them. But like I said, now everybody has seen them, because
Yeah.
they're out on the internet all the time now.
Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
that's hitting on some other publishers that I've been lucky enough to work with.
I love it. I love it. Well, Ron, this has been terrific. And again, it's awesome that we got to reconnect. I will have the link for the Catskill comics on the show notes, so we can make your commission list even longer. That's what I'm hoping for. So again, thanks for joining me, man. I greatly appreciate it.
I really do appreciate the time and your interest and everything. And continued good luck with you on the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Patreons, thanks for tuning in. If you're listening to this on our network feed, definitely pop over to patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. Try us out for 7 days for free, and listen to all of my interviews with all these great Marvel guys, just like Ron Frenz. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You have a good night.
You bet.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.